All right. Well, good afternoon, Lions fans. I'm going to apologize for the voice straight away because it still is not back 100%. But bear with me. We've got some breaking news coming out of Adam Schefter on Twitter that the Commanders have hired Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn as their head coach, which means that the last and final position for Aaron Glenn to take as a head coach is now gone. The question is going to remain. It's a big question. It's a big decision for the Detroit Lions. Are they going to retain Aaron Glenn? Here's the problem with interviewing coaches throughout the season, and this is why I feel like the NFL needs to change this. You are not giving every team that is battling in the postseason an opportunity to, one, interview all of the coaches, and two, make a decision if your coach does get plucked. Because let's look at what has transpired here. There has been coaches hired in the last couple of weeks before the season has even ended. There has been positions opened in the last couple of weeks, and then they're filled. So now let's say that the Detroit Lions decide to move on from Aaron Glenn, and I'm not saying that's what they're going to do. I'm not saying that's the right decision, but let's just say that happens. Who are you going to go get? What options do you have now? There's only one, and that's the one that I have wanted if Aaron Glenn was going to be moved on from, and that is Ron Rivera. I felt that he made the best sense out of all of the availability that was coming open, of all of the coaching opportunities that were going to be available. His defensive scheme, I felt, would have been the best fit for the Detroit Lions, schematically as well as personnel-wise that we had now and who we can get. Give me just a second. I got to get my computer plugged in. So we're not left with a whole lot of options, right? I mean, they're dwindling by the day. And so this doesn't make me feel very comfortable that if the Lions did want to make a move with Aaron Glenn, well, this is just a cluster, isn't it? That I was just doing some work for a family member and doing some work, and then this popped up, so I came home so I could jump on. All right. So you're not leaving a whole lot of options for the Lions when they're all plucked. So if they were to move on from Aaron Glenn, yeah, you have a bevy of options when, you go down to the college ranks. Make sure that's actually plugged in. Says that it is. But you don't have any options really for the professional ranks unless you're going to try to pluck somebody from another team. Or if you're going to move up, Calvin Shepard and do something internal, that's really all you're left with. So let me get to your takes right away. And I can't put a poll out because I don't have YouTube up right now, but let me ask you this. Go ahead and put it in the chat. Do you want Aaron Glenn to stay? And it's a loaded question because if he stays, do you feel like he can have a much better season in 2024 after Brad Holmes goes out and drafts a bunch of defensive players and brings in some defensive free agents? Are you in my boat where I felt like he's just a few pieces away from having a very solid defense? Or are you in the boat that no matter what Aaron Glenn has at his disposal, he's just not good enough? I think there's two defined lines here. You have the right side that's saying right or left, doesn't matter. Right side that's saying he's just not good enough and he makes bad decisions, especially looking at what happened in this last game. Let me run down that road for a minute. All he had to do was stop the bloodshed. Just prevent the 49ers from having their way with the Lions in this last game. And I know it's easier said than done. I understand that completely. But I felt like we were playing tough man football in the second half. We were an attacking defense as opposed to preventing, right? Just prevent the inevitable, prevent the big play. Instead, we were attacking and then reacting. I thought that was a terrible way to end the game. I felt like if we just prevented, the big plays, right, as best as you can. I mean, you can't do anything about the Vildor play. I mean, that's just a freak play. But all the other stuff, all of the big chunks, you could have prevented a lot of that just by backing up a little bit, giving them a little bit of a cushion, play everything underneath. So is that a poor decision, by Aaron Glenn? I think a lot of us would say yes. But at the same time, does that decision also fall on Dan Campbell? Because he is the leader. And he also has to be able to override his defensive coordinator throughout the game to say, hey, I don't like this. We need to do something different, change it. And again, I'm speaking freely here. I don't know exactly what these guys are going to be doing, during the game. You see a lot of times there's not a whole lot of change. First half they kind of stick to their quote unquote script. Second half they make some changes at halftime. They still kind of stick to their script. It seems like the great ones are able to, work on the fly. I've always been a guy that can transition. I can adapt. I can become a chameleon and blend. And I think that's a good trait to have. I feel like your better coaches have those traits because they can adapt, on the fly and make the changes necessary. Does Aaron Glenn possess that ability? I don't know. I don't know if he does. I'm not there in the room. I'm not there on the sideline, so I don't know. So on the left side, of the argument here, is he really just a few players away? And can he have a better showing? And does consistency matter? I think I'm gonna way more in on the left side of this argument, figuratively left side of the argument, not politically or anything like that. Because I feel like consistency is a very big factor. We've seen what these Lions have been able to do now for 3 seasons by sticking to the guns with the plan that they developed in 2021, seeing it through and adapting where they needed to, making changes where they needed to. Brad Holmes is giving them every option he can. There's another argument for another day on Brad Holmes, but I think that consistency is a huge component to this, and that we're going to retain all of our coaches again for a 4th season. Sight unseen, we don't know what's going to happen with Aaron Glenn in the next 24 to 48 hours from a Lions organization decision, right? So where am I going with this? The teams, and you know who said it best the other day? I caught him. He was in his car, Glover Quinn. He was in, I just caught this yesterday. He was talking about consistency and being able to retain Ben Johnson and how important it is to keep the same coaches, to keep, the same players, and how important it is for your team to grow and develop and continue the plan. And I mean, he hit the nail right on the head. I mean, go figure. One of the best to ever do it in the Honolulu Blue knows what it takes to win. And having that consistency in the locker room, having that consistency on the sideline, having that consistency throughout training camp allows you to grow, allows you to get better. They can all look at themselves hard in the mirror and say, this is where I failed. This is what I've got to fix next year. And if you're doing that 4 seasons in a row now, well, 3, this will be your 4th, you would expect that by now we will have the draft picks, we will have the free agents, we will have a full roster that's been handpicked that takes 4 seasons to develop. If you really look at it, 4 times 7 is what? 28. Not all seasons you have all 7 picks. It takes 25 picks to fill out an entire roster. 25 because you've got 11 on defense, 11 on offense, a kicker, a punter, and a long snapper. So it really takes 4 seasons to develop your roster that has all of your fingerprints all over it. Brad Holmes is entering his 4th season. Aaron Glenn, Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson are entering their 4th seasons. This will be Ben Johnson's 3rd as the offensive coordinator. And they will now have their own rosters completely built with their fingerprints all over it. And I feel that, like I've always felt, we were half a season ahead from personnel. We're now going to be there. There is no more excuses. There is no more doubt that can be cast on what this team should be able to do. We're coming off one of the best seasons we've ever had in Lions history, at least in the Super Bowl era. And now it's time to go get it. So, all right, let me bounce into the chat and see what everyone's saying. Again, I apologize for the voice, man. It's gone. Shout out to Steve K. Says, I think AG did the best he could with what the Lions had. Offseason additions are needed to lift the defense to the next level. Spot on, Steve. Always spot on, man. Rick Grit, hey, welcome, buddy. Peter, did AG get the commander job? No, he didn't. Dan Quinn did. And right now, Ron Rivera is probably going to get signed by the Cowboys quickly, I would assume, because Dan Quinn is gone. That's, in my mind, the best option available. And that's why I'm thinking these next 24 to 48 hours are going to be very fluid. It's either the Lions are sticking to the plan. Brad Holmes is going to come out and say, we're sticking to the plan. We're sticking with our team. We've got our guys. Or there's going to be a change. And I feel like the best person available right now, based on their tenured history in the NFL, is Ron Rivera. That is no slight on Calvin Shepard or anybody we have internally. I'm looking at it from a schematic standpoint and, someone that has a long history in the NFL. We know that Ron Rivera is a great coordinator. We know that when his fingerprints were on Washington's defense, they did great. One of the best defenses. And in all of the teams that he's been a defensive coordinator, they've consistently gotten better every season. He's even had some of the, I think, number 1, number 2 ranked defenses in the NFL. At least top 5. I know that for sure. Braylon Dennis says, what? No. Yeah, man. AG staying so far. Lone Wolf says, Lions need to invest in defensive players. Make no excuses for AG. Great point. Peter Van Laar says, let Brad cook, guys. I love it. Gazan Desage says, I think they would only move on if they really wanted a scheme change. And that's a great point. Do we really need a scheme change at this point? Some things a lot of fans don't understand because they don't go deep off into the weeds like some of us, is you pick players based on scheme, right? I think that's understood. I think we all get that. It's not like a 3-4 nose tackle is going to do really well in a 4-3 defensive tackle scheme. If you are going to implement the 3-2-6 in your 4-3 base package or out of your 4-3 base package, and you do a 3-2-6, and then your nose tackle's in the game, he's going to do well because that's his job, taking on 2 gaps in the 3-2-6. So there's a time and a place for it all. But that's why teams run 3-4 or 4-3 or a hybrid. And I feel like our Lions are kind of in that hybrid role right now, 4-3, base defense, but we run a lot of formations out of it. And we've seen some changes schematically throughout the season, like I've always said since the Broncos game. But I would say the answer is no. I don't think that we need a scheme change. I think that we need some more personnel on this team to elevate and upgrade some of the positions that we're lacking. And I'll just say it again. I know you guys have heard me say it. Cam Sutton needs to go to number 2, my opinion. May not be the only person that believes that, but I think that Cam Sutton at number 2 would be great. If we bring in a rookie, Cam Sutton stays at number 1. That's just my opinion because I don't want to put a rookie's feet to the fire. I'd rather see them grow for a season and then move them over in year 2. That's how I would do it. I think that we've seen some of the better cornerbacks have a little bit of time, or they come in with leaders on the team that have been around that can coach them up. And right now we have Kirby Joseph, who's going to be entering his third season. Brian Branch will be entering his 2nd season, so he'll be more of a leader in the room. You'll have Cam Sutton. I think he'll be entering his 5th or 6th season this year. So again, great leader. Doesn't mean he does everything perfect on the field, but great leader. Jeff Okudah never had anybody to learn from. Everybody was gone. So he kind of had his feet put to the fire in that number 1 role. He never had anybody to learn from other than his coaches. He needed somebody on the field. So you need that field general to really help you grow. And we have some of those. Alex Anzalone, phenomenal leader. Aiden Hutchinson is really starting to grow into a leader. This team is set up to, for success, for these guys to be successful. Art France says, I'm just glad that we are able to keep our offensive coordinator. Huge, right? Braylon Dennis believes that AG is not good enough, period. John Desage says, I don't think anyone on our staff other than AG is qualified for a coordinator role. That's interesting. I don't know enough about Calvin Shepard. I really don't. I know he's a hell of a player. I think that he's a hell of a linebacker coach. I don't know any more than that. As far as a leader, I think he's a great leader. Listening to him, I feel like he communicates very well. As long as your players respect you, then I feel like you have a better opportunity than most, because the respect is very hard to earn. Being a former player, I feel like that kind of curbs the respect a little bit. You kind of earn it a little bit quicker. But here's my biggest question. AG was a DB, right? Why do our DBs play so terribly? And when I say DBs, it's all inclusive, even though some of them play great, like Branch, iffy, but in coverage, terrible. We've been terrible all season. So you would think that that would be our strength, right? That should be our strength. He was a DB. That should be a strength of this team. Dre Bly, former player, now coaching the DBs, should be a strength. I'll give Dre Bly 1 year of a pass because I really respect the guy. I loved him as a player. This is his first year in the pros as a coach. So he needs, his freshman year to absolve, kind of what's been going on and how to get past it. He was also given the guys that he has. He hasn't been in the room to really, select that next DB. Maybe he was involved with Brian Branch. I don't know. But the point is, that should be a strength of our team, and it's not. And that's what leads me to believe it's a personnel issue. Southwest Line 26 says, how many NFL teams would do well with Sutton and Vildor as their starting cornerbacks? Great point. I don't know. I mean, so it's a great question. If they are on a different team with a different head coach, a different defensive coordinator, and a different, cornerbacks coach or DB coach, does that matter? Here's where I think that question gets more convoluted. Is their front seven really good? More importantly, do they have a pass rush? The only excuse that I'm going to give our DBs is this. We have not had a pass rush the majority of the season. You guys know me by now. I do not care about pressure unless pressure turns into what? Negative plays. If you are not getting negative plays, pressure doesn't matter. Our guys could only stay sticky for so long. So if we're not getting to the quarterback, if we're not getting TFLs, if we're not batting down balls, if we're not, getting stops in the run game, then our DBs are going to get roasted. If we get a pass rush, that makes up for your DBs. Truth? Do we agree? I hope so. The truth, speaking of the truth, says our whole defensive unit needs to be upgraded. I agree on the upgrade. I don't know about the whole defensive unit. I think that we have some great pieces. And we're only going to be missing about, I think, 25% of our roster due to free agency. I think a handful of them are restricted. But when you really get granular with it, there's only about 4 of them that really had significant playing time this season. I think that we can replace 4 players if we had to and get better output, better performance. Rick Grit says he feels it's a pointless conversation at this point. All the head coaching jobs are filled, and there is zero chance Campbell fires AG just because fans think he should. It's a good point, man. That's what I started with. Who's left? There's nobody left. The only one that's left is Ron Rivera. I mean, do you snatch him up right now and bring him in as, some sort of a role, consulting role, kind of like what they did with John Fox? I mean, put him in some sort of a role where they're still making good money and they have an opportunity. Do you think that Ron Rivera would want to join a Lions organization based on how well we're doing right now and where this team is headed versus a Cowboys that has an owner that has his fingerprints all over everything because he can't just let his coaches coach? That's a tough situation. I think the biggest reason why the Cowboys fail every year is because their owner just can't let things be. You hire people to do a job, let them do the job. If they fail at their job, then do something about it. But right now, I feel like the Cowboys' failure is all because of Jerry Jones. You can't blame all of their coaches. You can blame players, but I don't think you can blame all their coaches. I think a lot of that has to do with Jerry Jones. And that's the big difference in Detroit, right? Sheila Ford Hamp hired these guys to do a job. They believed in a plan together. They were very like-minded in their view on where this team should go and how it would get done. And she came to the podium last year and said, look, I got the guys. We're good. Just keep believing in the process. Everything snapped and turned a couple weeks later. We've been riding high now for a season and a half. And that's the difference between good ownership and ownership that, maybe are a little bit too OCD and I guess what's the word? Controlling, maybe. But it's his team. He owns it. I guess he can do whatever he wants. But you're not going to see that in Detroit. Southwest Line 26 says CJGJ has the swag, which I like, but sometimes he just goes over the top. All right, you guys want to talk about CJ for a minute? Justin says CJGJ as a leader and a general he loves. He thinks there's a line on the ish talk where and when he oversteps, he loses some focus. And that's the line I wish he didn't cross, given all the awesome stuff he does. I just had a conversation with a good friend, Brian, a few moments ago, about an hour ago. And he kind of had the same thing on his mind. Great vocal leader. We need those. But there comes a time and a place where this 15-yard penalty where he checks Debo, not needed, right? It's out of line. It's uncalled for. And my response to him is, this game is 90% mental. And I don't know if I've shared this with you guys, but my view on just about any sport is it's 90 mental, 10 physical. And the reason why I say that is because everybody at this league, at this level, they all have the physical tools. They're all strong. They're all athletic. They all, have the agility to jump out of a gym. But not every single one of them has the mental. They can't get out of their own head to do what's right for the team. They're thinking about themselves. You have to be unselfish, number one. Number two, you have to have the ability to adapt and overcome mentally, that when you screw up on a play, you've already forgotten about it. You've corrected it mentally. You've moved on. If you live back here in that mistake, you will never move forward. And you will continue to make those mistakes. CJ Gardner, hell of a player when he wants to be. I was worried that him coming back and not playing with the team the entire year, he was going to lose that continuity. And in the DB world, you survive on that. Those guys have to communicate without communicating. What I mean by that is they have to know the hand signals. They literally have to look at the guy and know what he's thinking, because you can't hear. You can't hear each other out there. So it's hand signals, it's knowing what the other person is thinking, all mental, right? Keeping your head in the game, not losing your cool, all mental. Being aggressive, but not over aggressive, and making sure you're in the right alignment, the right fitment, the right scheme, sticking to your details, all mental. CJ Gardner is an excellent vocal leader. I was worried about the continuity of him coming back and only playing one game before going to the playoffs. I would have much rather have had Brian Branch in there versus CJ Gardner, because Brian's been there. He's a big time player. He makes big time plays. And he's been there all season. He deserved it. Rookie or not, he played way better than any rookie that I've ever seen at that position. So do I want CJ back? If it was an extremely good deal, yes. Am I worried about the mental side of it for CJ Gardner in his loudmouth-ish talking being a problem? Kinda. But that's what makes him special. That's who he is. That's his brand. I think, Dan Campbell said it best in the spring that you can have one guy on the team that really rides the line, maybe a little bit of a problem. And I'm not saying CJ's a problem because we don't know what he's like in the locker room, outside of what the guys tell us, in media, press release or whatever. But I guess for me, I would rather see the Lions spend the money on somebody that really fits the culture to a T. And I'm not saying he doesn't fit the culture because I think that he's somebody that wants to win. I think that he's infectious, but is that infectious attitude too much sometimes? Can it distract? And I'll go back to the video that I took on the sideline that went viral when Kirby Joseph was marching up and down the sideline, all pissed off, ranting and raving, yelling and screaming. We don't know what he said, but CJ Gardner was right there. And he was involved in it from the beginning. So did CJ really tick off Joseph? Did something get said between them and they were having a squabble and then it started to infect everybody? They didn't play well that game. So those are the things I worry about. I mean, it's out of our control. We're just witnesses at this point. But CJ being the player that he is and the type of attitude that he has and his work ethic, I mean, come on, battling back from that injury in 12 weeks. It's incredible. That type of energy, that type of leadership you want. But sometimes the vocalness is too much. Sometimes. All right. The Truth has a comment here. He says, I disagree with you. Will you say that I would defense athletic? I don't know what defense you guys saw, but from what I saw, we can go out and get better defensive players. Yes, truly, I agree with you there. What I'm saying is that everybody in this league is athletic. Everybody in this league has the same type of intangibles, right? They all go through the combine. Just look at the combine stats. I mean, they're fairly similar. You have your top 3 round guys that kind of all fit in a box, and then you got the later round guys. But some of the later round guys are even more athletic than the first round guys. So overall, they're all very athletic, right? Just some are better than others. To your point on Cam Sutton can't cover. No, he can't. But he's also signed on a 3-year, $30 million, $33 million contract. He's not going anywhere. And after his play this season, it's doubtful he's going to be able to be traded. I'm not saying that's a good decision either. We do need to bring in some more guys. But what I see from an athletic standpoint, from a personnel standpoint, is we were literally missing one defensive end, one defensive tackle, and one cover corner that can truly cover. Those 3 positions, I believe, change the scope of this season. I think that we win more games with those 3 positions, as long as they're the right fit, right? They got to be the right fit. They have to have the right type of agility and athleticism and mental. It's all mental. Let me be honest with you. You guys know that I get on Hutch a little bit. And that's because I expect more out of the second overall pick. And here's what I'm going to tell you. The reason why we need another defensive end and another defensive tackle is because Aiden Hutchinson has all the gifts in the world athletically. But right now, he's not an elite defensive end. He's not elite by himself. He requires a defense around him that can make plays so that he can then go make plays. The difference is, and this is rare, right? Myles Garrett doesn't need a defense. He can do it on his own. Nick Bosa doesn't need a defense. He can do it on his own. Micah Parsons, Max Crosby, they don't need the best defenses. They can do it on their own. Now, some of those guys have great defenses around them, but not every single season have they. And if you go and look at all of the top defensive ends in this league, go look at the top 10 or the top 15. Go back the last 4 or 5 years. Look at the defensive rankings, and then go and look at their stats. I'm willing to bet 7 or 8 out of 10 of those top 10, their stats are fairly consistent every year, regardless of how their defense played. That's elite. Aiden Hutchinson is not elite yet. He needs a defensive end to take the pressure away. so that he can go make plays. Myles Garrett wouldn't need that. We need a defensive tackle that can push the pocket, that can take up, an offensive guard and maybe a chipping running back or another tight end to chip so that he can get a one-on-one. But here's my concern. Aiden's still not winning his one-on-ones. Pressure. Gets tons of pressure. He never breaks free. The definition of pressure is simply just pushing the tackle back into the pocket. That's it. So if you just push your tackle, your one-on-one, you just push him back into the pocket, you earn a pressure. What did that do for us? Nothing. So I would challenge Aiden Hutchinson, who's one of our best players, to really hone in his skills next season. So if we want to talk about Cam Sutton not being able to cover, we need Aiden Hutchinson to beat his one-on-ones. I think it's fair to say that, right? I mean, it's an honest opinion and assessment based on what I've seen. And it's not anything other than that. It's just my realistic side and what I see. Oh, good comment in here. Man, Bear, Pig. Dude, that's a crazy name. Love it. Sue made a comment about putting players around Hutch a while back. Love it. See? And yes, we do need another defensive end. But Sue sees it. I mean, if we had Sue in a Sue type defensive tackle, oh my God. Just imagine what would happen. I mean, Hutch would be 15 sacks a season. And you guys know me by now. I don't really care about the stats so much. I care about this high defense working together. I don't care who gets the sack, the interception. None of that matters to me as long as it happens. So we need to add the players so that what looks like our defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, who's possibly going to be staying in Detroit now, can maybe work his magic a little bit and start to really affect the game schematically with the defensive players that he needs. But he also has to make better decisions. So if I were to throw a number at this, I'm going to say that this is 60% personnel. No, I'm sorry. 60% mental decisions on AG. 40% he needed a few more players too. And maybe that affects his decision making. Can we live with that in 2024? Can AG even it out? He's going to make mistakes. He's going to make bad calls. And that's where you have good players to rescue your coordinator. Because they are able to make changes, at the line within the scheme. So the truth will never get voided. Says Aiden Hutchinson is an elite defensive end. He carried the defense on his back. Come on, man. Aiden can only do so much. That's why we need another defensive end. I mean, you're right. Yes. I mean, I can agree and disagree. Pressure, I guess go listen to some other people too, because they'll tell you pressure is meaningless unless it equals a TFL, a batted pass, an interception, right? A stop in the run game. That's when pressure matters. Aiden's not getting to that second, third level. He's just getting pressure. And because you see those giant stats, you think he's elite. He's not elite. He wasn't even ranked in the top 20 for pass rush win rate. So if you want to look at the elite players, that pass rush win rate, he needs to be ranked in the top 20. He gets sacks and, Stafford fell on his back. Aiden touched him down. He gets credit for the sack, but what did he really do? He walked up to him and touched him. Same thing happened in the Washington game last year. Wentz just kind of backed into people and he gets credit for the sack. So you really got to look at the whole picture. Don't just look at the stat line. Look at the game tape. What did he do to earn that stat? Did we have a team, hive defense, corralling players, and whoever got lucky got the stat? That's what I want to see. And yes, the truth, look, there is no iron team. You're right. But what I'm saying is there's a big difference between an elite defensive end and a defensive end that's great, right? He's great. He's not elite. And I can tell you that there's a lot of people out there that agree with that. All right, Justin G says, can we talk about AG's eyewear game? In a world of Ray-Bans and trends, the man is staying classy, rocking them Polo Ralph Lauren's. Oh, that's great. Tracy says if AG can improve the defense this season, then we should look at getting someone a defensive coordinator that could take the defense to the next level. Aiden is good, but he can't go to the next level without help. Exactly. That's all I'm saying. He just needs some help too. But by himself, he's not going to be able to do it because he's not elite yet. If he was Myles Garrett, if we had Myles Garrett instead of Aiden Hutchinson, I think we would have a much different story. And I'm just being flat out honest. Myles Garrett's elite. Nick Bosa is elite. JJ Watt was elite. Aiden's not there. He's not. Justin G, there's and I in win, baby. I like that one. I mean, look what happened on our defense in the second half. We completely collapsed. You realize that in this last game, Aiden was ranked the worst run defender on our team. PFF grade, I think, was 39. In the pass rush, he was like our 6th ranked defender with like a 67, I think his PFF was. He was one of the worst ranked defenders in the game for the Lions. Previous 2 games, different story. Played better. This game, didn't play so well. And I went over that in the previous episode that I did when I got home. I believe it was yesterday morning. We went over all that stuff. So the stats are there, buddy. I'm not going to lie to you. You don't have to agree with me. It's okay. But I'm going to stick to my guns on that one. All right. So what's next, guys? What do we do next? Where do we go from here? We're going to start talking about some free agency and the guys that I have pegged as good options for the Lions. And there's one that I pegged a couple of months ago, and his name is AJ Epinesa. Now, you're going to say, but Will, he's not elite. He's not. He's not elite. He's a great fit. And I think he's somebody, obviously, I wanted when he was coming out of college. The Lions didn't get him. But he's somebody that I believe fits the culture already. And when you match him up on the other end of Aiden Hutchinson, and somebody that can, play a role, I think he's an immediate upgrade over some of the guys that we have already. A huge shout out to Ryan Van Valkenburg, $4.99 donation. What are your thoughts on Mike Vrabel if AG leaves? Man, I don't know. Let me look at something real quick. I have not given a whole lot of thought to Mike Vrabel. He spent 2 years as the linebackers coach and 1 year as the defensive coordinator of the Houston Texans. I'm not. I guess I'm not 1,000% sold on someone that has limited experience. That's why I love the ability of Ron Rivera, because he's been around a long time. But Mike Vrabel also brings that new, younger energy as well. So it's a toss-up. I think that Vrabel would fit the identity, the culture, and everything on this team. Given if the scheme stays the same, I mean, I wouldn't be mad about it. But if I think we really wanted a major upgrade, I think Ron Rivera just brings more to the table, but he's a little bit on the older side. But that experience, man, you can't ignore the experience. Vrabel, I guess I don't have an answer. Can I come back to you on that one, Ryan? Like I'll fit that in this week when we talk about free agents and kind of see what happens. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow morning. Give me the night to look up Vrabel in his history. As far as I got this year, it was Ron Rivera, and there was a few other ones, Dan Quinn, but we knew that he was going to get a head coaching job, or at least an option. Southwest Lion says, what I really like about MCC, he understands you have to keep improving players and coaches year to year. Who's MCC? Motor City Campbell? Gassan Jasaj says, I'd take Vrabel all day. Tell me this, Ryan, why do you like Vrabel, or do you not? I guess give me your thoughts on why you would like him. Rick Crit, nothing like being told you're wrong, then watching the person that told you you're wrong turn right around and prove your point. What did I miss? I missed it. I must have missed something. That's funny. It's not always about being right or wrong. It's, my opinions are my opinions. Not everyone's going to agree with them. That's okay. I respect your opinions. I just look at the stats, man. And when I look at the stats, I watch the tape. And when I watch the tape, I see what I see. And I think the point's been proven. And there's been many people that have, been in my box, so to speak, with Aiden's not elite yet. He could be. He has the potential to be. But there's one thing that I've always been, I don't know if you want to say rah-rah about or keyed in on, and that's measurables. And I've always said that, as a defensive end and as an offensive tackle, you have to have longer arms. There's a reason for it. As an offensive tackle, you want to keep the defensive end away from you, right? Said this yesterday morning. As a defensive end, you need the arm length to get off of the tackle, right? Get long, chop, swim, whatever, to get around, get underneath, get by. But you need that leverage. Aiden's arms compared to his body are short. And usually a defensive end, you want like a 33 and a half, 34 inch arm. Same thing as an offensive tackle, 34-inch arms is about what the going rate is these days, is what they're looking for. Aiden doesn't fit that category. And he's like, 6'7"? He should have much longer arms. That was one of the biggest knocks on Aiden coming out of the combine, was that his arm length could be a problem. And I'm not saying that it's the entire problem for him, but he's not winning his one-on-ones as often, and he's getting locked up by offensive tackles because he can't get free. That's why he uses the spin move. That's all he has left. He can't physically get off of them and get away from them because he doesn't have the length. So he has to use, a different skill set, which is a spin move. And if used correctly, I mean, it's a deadly move, but oftentimes it's not used correctly and he gets out of position too. So look, anytime you have to twist your body like that, you're taking, quarter seconds away from driving forward. And sometimes you get out of place. By the time you turn around, the quarterback could be on the other side and you're out of the, out of the play. Coming from the wide nine, though, is where I thought that Aiden was having a much better win rate out of the wide nine, and he just hasn't been in the wide nine a whole lot this season. Bruce Morton says Dan Quinn. Yep. Dan Quinn was hired by Washington, so that was the last option for AG. And he's saying that AG is going to stay here. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Lauren McQuaig says, I brought up our rookie D-line coach, John Scott Jr., more than a few times this year. It's a big jump to go from college ball to the NFL. Rookie coaches are often overwhelmed from drafts to builds. That's a great statement. Now, is John Scott Jr., he's related to, obviously, John Scott, but the Lions did pick up a new D-line coach. On Wednesday night, the Lions broke news that they'll be adding the Tennessee Titans assistant head coach, defensive line coach, Terrell Williams. And I don't know much about Terrell Williams, but let me bring something in from Pride of Detroit here. They always do a great job at putting some articles out right away. The overall reaction to Williams' hiring is overwhelmingly positive. At the very least, it appears that the Lions have a coach who could develop into their defensive coordinator. Ooh. Should they lose Aaron Glenn, Williams has the resume filled with leadership opportunities. Not only was he the assistant head coach under the Titans, head coach Mike Vrabel, there you go, Ryan, in 2023, but he was also the acting head coach for the team during their preseason game against the Chicago Bears. Well, wouldn't you know, the Detroit Lions are stacking. That's exactly what they're doing. They are stacking talent, not only in the coaching room, but as well as, their players, their roster. And that's the one thing you guys need to be really comfortable with is our depth. So we understand right now that we don't have a lot of elite players on the team, but we do have great depth. So imagine now we've started how many rookies in the last 3 seasons? 8 or 9, I think, have earned starting jobs between 2021 and 2023. Might be more than that, might be closer to 11. So some of these guys that we're bringing in that are locked up for a couple of seasons, they may not be elite, but they just went through a full season to the NFC Championship game. And now if they end up being second round or second tier, third tier guys, we've got phenomenal depth with experience. So when we get through this next free agency period and this next draft, and we add the next couple of elite players to this team, this roster is going to be built in a way that it can go the distance. If somebody goes down, we know that we have a proven player behind him that can step up. The Lions are doing the same thing in their coaching room. I don't know much about Terrell Williams. I'll read more on him. I'll put something out. Maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow morning when I get a chance to review it tonight. But it sounds like he's another great opportunity for the Lions to develop and develop this person to be ready for the next opportunity should the Lions move on from Aaron Glenn. Sounds like this was an opportunity, for the Lions to fill a spot and a need, upgrade our defensive line coach, which is needed. And, excuse me. What's funny is I put out a video a couple of months back talking about our defensive line. And when Wash left, was that the biggest reason why our defensive line was struggling this year? And I don't know if it got a whole lot of watches. It may have. But go back and take a look at it, because I mentioned a lot of things in there that I feel are very important to remember about your coaching staff. And sometimes when you make changes, you see, that position kind of fall off a cliff. Kind of happened this year with the defensive line. We didn't have the same push that we had last year. And sometimes it's the scheme within the scheme. It's building your skill set, within the defensive line and how you're teaching them to do things from coach to coach. It changes. I mean, your base stays the same, but sometimes those techniques change. And maybe it just didn't fit what our guys were used to and what they were good at. And that's the biggest takeaway I have from Dan Campbell this year, the last 3 years really, is he wants to bring guys in and allow them to do what they're very good at. And I felt like this season kind of got away from that. We've seen guys doing things on this defense that they definitely weren't good at and things that they haven't done before. And I understand that, Aaron Glenn was trying to make these guys more well-rounded athletes, more well-rounded in their position, as opposed to this is what I do well. James Houston is a great example. The guy's a pass rusher. He's a third down specialist. He's someone that's there to get after the quarterback. Why do you have him drop it in coverage? So I would love to see him play, all 3 downs. That may not be his forte. And if he's really good on third down, let him be really good on third down. And the guy jumped out with 8.5 sacks his rookie season, playing in 7 games. Why would you change anything? Hone in what he just did really well, make him that much better. Then put him in situationally and go win the dang game. 500 Stony. No, I never played NFL or college football. To answer your question, Lauren McQuaig says, impression I'm getting is Williams is going to scheme the defense plays against the run. That gives AG a big break on play design. I can't wait to read more on him. Southwest Line 26 says, I think we are going to see improved pass rush with the addition of Williams. I hope so. Chris says, Vrabel would be insanely awesome pickup as a DC. He's too alpha, though. That's a good point. Got too many alphas in the room. Sometimes they don't mix, but I think that we do have a great mix of that already. I mean, if you think for one moment that Aaron Glenn's not an alpha, I think that we would be mistaken. I think that they're both alphas. I think that they're just better friends. They get along really well. They understand each other. Ben Johnson may not be as alpha on, outwardly looking at him, but the guy's all business. I mean, I'm so happy that he's staying in town. I really am. Speaks volumes to his character and who he is as a person. Oh, looks like someone bought some coffees today. It just says someone. So shout out to someone again today. Bought some coffees for me. Appreciate it. And I will be sending off some information to one of our local roasters, by the way. Promised you guys we're going to bring in some local coffee roasters as sponsors. And hopefully we should have our answer back here in the next week or so. And get some samples out to everybody and promote a local coffee roaster. So when they come on board, I'll let you know who they are. Rick Grit says 3-13-1, 9-8, 12-5, plus a division title, 2 playoff wins, and an NFC title game. MCDC just keeps getting better. He's not perfect, but who is? He actually learns from his mistakes. Great point, man. Great point. And that's exactly what we expected. Look, I know we're not jumping out of the box with a Super Bowl this season. We all felt it. I mean, it was there. We had it. It was actually in our grasp. That's why I'm so torn on the AG thing, because I know in my heart that this is the year that there's no excuses. This is the year that he can actually get the players that he needs to. Brad Holmes was so keyed in on the trenches and building the offense. And if I were to take a guess as to why he did that, when you go look at the last 15 years of Super Bowl winners, it was largely the number 1, 2, 3, or top 5 offense that won. I think there's only been one defensive team, meaning the defense was better than the offense, that's won the Super Bowl in the last 25 years, I think. Don't quote me. I'll go back and look again. But it's something crazy like that. So he recognizes that it's not defenses win championships anymore. Offenses win championships. But at the same time, you're not going to win the championship if your defense is full of holes. You still need a top 10 defense. And that's the caveat to offenses win, is you still need a top 10 defense. In all of those years, I think that there was only a couple where a top 15 defense won. And that's where I was hoping we were going to get this year, was a top 15. It just didn't happen. Ryan Van Valkenburg says, I hope the Niners win the Super Bowl so the opener can be NFC Championship rematch. Man, that would be incredible. And if it's away again, would it be away? I don't know if it would be away. We have a tough schedule. Bruce Morton says that was the 85 Bears. Man, the 85 Bears had a crazy defense. Steve K says Washington just announced that they are hiring Dan Quinn. Yeah. That's why I started this, Steve. It was because we knew AG was gone. We knew it. It came out, 45 minutes ago or so, or what time is it? 12:30? About an hour ago now. And that's why I jumped in to do the live. Talk about AG and what's next. Who's on the line. But knowing that we have Williams that has some head coaching experience, even though it's one game, he does have some pretty good experience, and I'm going to dive into him a little bit later to see where he goes. Lauren McQuaig says the impression I'm getting is Williams is going to scheme the defensive plays. Oh, I already said that. My apology. Southwest Line 26 says there were a lot of broken tackles in that game too. It's on players to make those tackles. Good point. There's a few times where I saw players hitting, right? You're just going up to hit somebody with a shoulder check as opposed to wrapping them up. And it can't happen. You look at Debo's lower half. That guy is huge, big legs. You got to wrap that guy up because he's just going to bounce off of you if you're trying to hit him. But that's where the Hive defense works so well, right? If you got 4 or 5 hats around somebody, someone's going to get them on the ground. For whatever reason, we've gotten away from that. Like, you need everybody sprinting towards the ball. And I'm going to say this too. I said it yesterday. Go back and look if you can, because I know it's tough. But go back and look at that Vildor missed catch and missed interception that Ayuk grabbed, that 51-yard play. And at the end of the replay or the highlight, whatever you watch, Cam Sutton is looking at you right in the eyes. And it got me thinking, like, what are you doing over there? Why are you not closing on the ball? He's literally just kind of running down the field, looking over at Vildor, knowing that the ball's going that way. If Cam would have closed on that ball, and maybe he had an opportunity to intercept it after Vildor missed it, or at least knock it out of the air so Ayuk couldn't grab it, or tackle him and cause a fumble, something. But I still don't understand why he wasn't closing on the ball. And maybe I need to go back to watch the full replay because this is just like the tail end of it. But that was my immediate reaction, is why was he just looking and not closing? Randy P says, where is AG going? So AG's staying home so far. He's staying in Detroit. There's no other head coaching jobs. And with that, there's no other defensive coordinator positions open unless somebody's looking for, dare I say, an upgrade. He's going to be staying in Detroit. And I think that, as Lions fans, whether you agree with it or not, the one thing that we have to try to do is get past it. If you don't agree with AG, if you think he's trash as a defensive coordinator, we still need to support our Lions, right? We need to put out the good energy. AG does hear and see things. He's not going to go up there and say, Rick Grit, I saw what you said, on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube. He's not going to come out there and call everybody out, but he's going to hear and see things. If you don't think that players and coaches look at some of our YouTubes or see the stuff on socials, they see it. Not all of it, but they see it. They hear about it. So let's pick these guys up. And maybe that's what I'll finish with today, is we've done a great job at supporting our Lions to this point. It didn't end, the way that we had hoped. But I think that every single person in this chat right now, in this YouTube video right now, live with me, would probably agree that none of us thought that we would have gotten this far this year. In August, I said that we would go 12-5 and win the NFC North and go to the playoffs. And I thought that it would end there with maybe one win, maybe. But that's as far as I saw us going, because I still thought we were half a season ahead of ourselves, needing that extra draft. Right, wrong, or indifferent, it happened, and we exceeded my expectations. I don't know what your expectations are. I mean, every single one of us in the back of our mind is thinking we're going to win a Super Bowl every year. That's just what you want to think as a player, as a coach, as a fan, and especially with everything that has gone on since Hard Knocks woke up the world to the Detroit Lions. That's kind of how we've been feeling, because MCDC is such a great motivator. And we believed in the system, and we believe in the energy, and we believe in the direction and the plan and everything else. And our rookies are outperforming every other rookie. But just for one moment, let's just accept the fact that we had a great season. Our Lions need us. They need us to support them, no matter who's our coach, defensive coach, offensive coach, or our quarterback. It doesn't matter. We need to support them. I think we can all agree on that. Man Bear Pig says, hit the like button. That would be great. I'd appreciate it. If you think the Lions can make it to the Super Bowl this year, hit that like button. That would be sweet. I should see about 100 likes right now. I think this is our year, guys and ladies. I really do. It's what I predicted last year. I thought 2024 was it. Not only are we going to host the draft, but we're also going to go to the Super Bowl. We were this close. It's going to be very hard to get back. But something tells me inside that we can do it. I've seen amazing things come out of this Detroit Lions team this year. Jared Goff, he's proved everybody wrong again. We expected that he was going to have a great season. And if he does, he gets rewarded with a contract. And I think that we're going to be hearing about that probably in the next 30 days or as soon as they're allowed to renegotiate, which I think they can renegotiate at any point in time. But definitely by the new league year, we're going to be hearing about a new contract for Jared Goff. And I think it's well worth it. We don't need somebody that can run a 40 and 4.2 flat. We don't need a guy that can be a dual threat. He may be the last of the dying breed of pocket passers. Tom Brady did it for 20 plus years and won a ton of rings. He averaged 35 yards of rushing a season. All he required was a decent offensive line, like every quarterback requires, and a few weapons. And if he gets those couple of things, which he has, there's no reason why he can't run it back. Offensive line, I'm a little worried about. But we'll talk about that in another video. So that's where I'm going to end it today. Let's rise up. Let's support these guys. Aaron Glenn, welcome back to Detroit for now. Unless something happens in the next couple of days, you've got my support, buddy. Let's rise up and make a big difference here in 2024. Brad Holmes, go get him some guys, man. Go get him a couple extra dogs. All right, let's rise up in 2024. See you tomorrow on Rise and Grind. Have a good day.